Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are 4/6 of Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
You just love doing extended fractions. Are you just flexing there? Is that a maths flex for you?
I don't want to brag at him, but I have an advanced degree from a top-tier university, which allows me to do fractions.
Wasn't your degree in performing arts?
Yeah, well, the other one, there's a business degree, big important businessman
Sure,
doing big business things. So, and that means
Cool.
I can do all the fractions I want, and it only cost me $50,000. So bargain, as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely got my money's worth.
Nailed it.
So this is a news and politics podcast about newsy type stuff and things, and we have. Lucky for us, we have world exclusive coverage of the shambolic unfoldings of the American electorate. So please do not go elsewhere for your news about the downfall of the American empire. You won't be able to get it. We have signed an exclusive contract with the administration.
Much like all the TV shows, just like yeeting out of binge over to HBO Max with those exclusive rights. So if you wanted to watch Friends, actually that's on Netflix, don't worry about it. But point being is...
if you want to watch binge. Last of Us, if you want to watch White Lotus.
Last of Us, yep.
Yeah, first one's free, Max. First one's free, buddy.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just been yeeted out of there. So you're not going to be able to see it. So here's the only place for news going forward. So I would encourage you to... just unsubscribe from the New York Times and, don't bother, really. You're not going to get anything. So,
and there's never been any ill effects.
Just puzzles.
Not listening to diversified news sources. That's never had a problem. It's never caused any issues with...
I think all the experts would agree that you want as few news sources as possible. Basically, you want to find a couple of white guys speaking into microphones in their second bedrooms on the internet. Just espousing completely uninformed opinions. And what you want to do is you just want to believe those things wholeheartedly.
Verbatim.
Yeah, just verbatim. And just take a hypodermic needle theory of media just directly into your brain don't stop questioning anything. And that's a healthy media diet, I think, for most consumers. I think most media scholars would agree. So in that vein, Trump and Musk, who seem to be living on a media diet consisting entirely of Charlie Kirk directed, injected directly into their retinas, were taken aback this week when they learned that they don't actually have their finger on the pulse of the American public, which is strange because Trump loves having his fingers on members of the American public. So you might have heard this week that Wisconsin underwent a special election for a Supreme Court justice. Now, this is an activity that seems to be reserved primarily for American justices. We don't have this thing here where we elect judicial representatives just by virtue of the fact that, we want them to be impartial, and having an election obviously suggests a sort of partisan affiliation, right?
And to be clear, these were non-partisan candidates that have no affiliation to either major party.
Right, but the GOP donated $9 million to one, and the Democrats donated $10 million to the other. So
they're so independent, George. Like, they are aggressively independent. They don't even have to recuse themselves if there's any cases related to each of these major parties. It's fine. Don't worry about it. The fact that we call the person who won, Susan Crawford, a liberal candidate has got nothing to do with the fact that she was backed by the Democrats.
Yeah, look, it's a flawless system. And I think the founders, this is exactly what they intended, was for $100 million to be spent on a Supreme Court race. So that's definitely what they want. In a state Supreme Court, not even the Supreme Court, just a Supreme Court. Obviously good news for anyone who has more than a couple of brain cells to rub together. Susan Crawford, who was the quote-unquote liberal, sort of leftist, I wouldn't even describe her as a leftist candidate. She's just a not insane person who believes in abortion rights and people's autonomy in their bodies, and isn't a, Trump, Elon Musk-fueled right-wing sociopath like Schimmel, her opponent. But for whatever reason... Elon Musk thought this would be a great idea to just come and test out his likability in a swing state couple months after he's spent
to swing things.
Yeah, well, yes, in order to swing things to his advantage, and he was campaigning heavily for I think it was Brad Schimmel, her opponent, and it turns out that Schimmel lost by double digits, so about 10 percentage points. So it was looking like she was going to win on the day. They didn't know if it was going to be 1 or 2 sort of percentage points, but the polling was sort of leaning towards her in her favor. She ended up cleaning up in a 10 percentage point race, and more people voted in this special election for a Supreme Court justice than in a previous any previous governor's races for the state of Wisconsin. Like, the turnout for this was massive. It was a massive mobilization effort. Both sides of politics were like, this is going to be a referendum on Trump and the first 3 months of the Trump campaign, right? We need to go really hard on this. So there were a lot of lobbying efforts, a lot of like foreign, money coming in from out of state. Elon Musk himself personally contributed $25 million to this race, which for him is like bending down and dropping a $5 note. So not necessarily that much money for him, but like in the context of a state judicial election is obviously massive. And it turns out that people don't really love, Elon Musk coming in and taking a hatchet to government and
he gave people free money. Obviously people can be bought, George.
There's a great clip where he's coming in, and so he's doing a rally. He's literally like there in person. It's so funny that these pricks, these oligarchs, have no fucking idea how much. Maybe it's just because they're surrounded by bootlickers on their social media platforms that they own that can't help but, just blow them all the time. But like, everyone fucking hates you, dude. Like, you are not a popular figure right now, Elon Musk specifically. And so to associate yourself with a candidate is actually kind of like toxic for a candidate. I don't know if you know that, but you coming in and personally tying yourself to the outcome of this candidate is actually less good for the candidate than had you have just stayed away and done fucking nothing, because it nationalizes the race. It gets all this attention from national media and all this sort of stuff. Elon Musk is going down to rallies in Wisconsin to try and plug this guy. And turns out everyone fucking hates you, Elon. So that's not helping. And there was this weird moment where he was on stage at a rally and someone was booing him or something, or some protester was in there. He's like, I thought we'd have some like Soros paid, protesters here. And then, they were escorted off the premises. And then he went back to, resumed his speech where he was giving $1 million away to people who attended the rally. So 2 different people were just quote unquote randomly selected. I'm not buying votes. Not doing that dirty George Soros type paid protester nonsense. Anyway, let's get back to the business of why I'm here, paying people to vote for my candidate. said the richest man in the world. Like, just to have completely smooth brained and to have no sense of irony whatsoever when making that statement. I don't understand these fucking losers, honestly.
Well, it's not the first time he's done it. He was also doing similar stuff.
Prior to the
election as well.
Yeah, the 2024 election, he was doing same thing. They're trying to like skirt around the legality of these things because you're not allowed to pay people to vote. You're like, that is a definite thing that you're not allowed to do. But they do this thing that's like, if you sign this petition for like freedom of speech order, if you come to this rally, or if you sign up to vote, you go into a prize draw that win. Like all this sort of shit where it's like, we're not paying you to vote, but like, if you vote for our guy, you might end up with $1 million. Like, who knows? It's so dodgy.
To his credit, Brad Schimmel did concede sort of when the writing was on the wall, and he did.
No, that's not to his credit, Adam.
To accept the result.
That's what you're supposed to do. What do you want, a fucking cookie? That's what you're supposed to do, is concede the election when you lose it. You don't get a fucking pat on the back. Is this how far we've digressed as a fucking body politic? Is that when someone admits that they lost the election that they actually lost, we go, good on him. At least he didn't try and big lie and overthrow the Capitol. Like, that's not a congratulations. That's like fucking good. Of course you did. So you should.
Well, but the attendees still had, some entertainment. He played bass with his rock band both before and after that concession speech. So like they came, obviously they lost the election, Schimmel, but they got a show. So that's the main thing.
That's all the American public has ever wanted, really, is they just want a good show. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think it's a slightly reassuring sign that a state that I think Trump carried by like several points, being Wisconsin in the in the presidential election just months ago, has had a massive like 15-point swing against him. I think that's reassuring for Democrats for the midterms coming up in whatever, just under 2 years, to go, okay, well, clearly what this guy's doing is unpopular. The figures that he's tying himself to are really unpopular, and that's something we can run on. We don't have to run on being good Democrats, but we can run on, because, you know, maybe we can't, but like, something we can run on is Elon Musk is a prick piece of shit, and that is a message that everyone seems more or less on board with. So, yeah, so it's a positive sign of maybe things to come. Yeah.
So obviously there's the bellwether aspect to the election. There's also some other stuff where they were, you know, Elon was talking about how the Libs would redraw state voting lines around, which could lose them the majority.
Well, this is why it was such a pivotal race, is because it would give either side the majority on the Supreme Court. You'd either have a Liberal majority or a Conservative majority, depending on which candidate won. And yes, there are redistricting efforts that are coming up and things like that. But yeah, the way Elon was framing it was like, today's the day that Western civilization falls if we don't win this. Like, you know, it's like, okay, just like trying to muster the Rohirrim to, like, you know, save fucking, you know, it's just not, it seems completely out of touch with the reality of the situation. It's just take a breath, Elon. Not everything's you know, an existential fucking culture war, you big loser.
Although, in terms of existentialism, not even existential, it's actually real. It's real. It's right in front of us. It's going to affect people's lives. The big announcement this week was, of course, that Trump just decided to bite the bullet finally and tariff the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So
like
Trump has effectively sanctioned America.
Well, they've tariffed the world by sanctioning themselves.
So for those who don't know, let's explain what a tariff is. So if you're not like me, if you're not a nerd, you know, downloading the build your own budget tool from the Australian government just for fun and just seeing what you could do to taxes on the top 1% if we really had our way, like me. If you're not that guy, maybe you don't know what tariffs are. Let me explain what tariffs are for the audience. So a tariff is essentially a tax. It's a tax that gets levied on an American importer for the import of foreign goods. Now, the way tariffs are generally used or thought to be useful, and this is a matter of much debate amongst economists as to whether they are actually useful in any way and don't just happen to destroy whatever they touch. The idea is that, say, for example, you had domestic car manufacturing, right? Like America does.
That's probably the classic.
That's probably the best example, right? And this is why the American Auto Workers Union in the States are for these tariffs, right? Say you have domestic car manufacturing. And it's an industry that's obviously very valuable to you. It's an industry that, you know, does a lot of, a lot of secondary, second order effects, other jobs that are tied into this industry. Yeah, it's got a multiplier effect because it affects different areas of the industry and supply chains and all this sort of stuff.
Supply chains,
It is a benefit to, if you are a large industrialized country, to have car manufacturing in your country, because it has a lot of other benefits. That's why the Australian government tried so hard, sort of whatever it was 15 years ago, to hang on to ours, and unsuccessfully. So the idea of having a tariff is you'd say, okay, well, these cheap imports from China, these Chinese cars, say BYD cars, for example, are coming in and they're subsidized by the state. They've got an unfair advantage against our market. Maybe we say cars from China cost 20% more, and that kind of evens out the playing field. So American companies can have a fair competition against this unfair subsidized market, right? So obviously, if you levy this tax, importers pay more for those products. They're going to cost more when you turn around and sell them to the consumer, because that money's got to come from somewhere. The way tariffs have been used in the past, and they were utilized by the Biden administration and by others and things like that as well, was to hit particular sectors, right? You would say, we're going to tariff cars, or we're going to tariff, whatever, microchip manufacturing, or things like this, where it's like particular industries where it's like, we have this industry in America that we want to protect, and we don't want it getting overwhelmed by cheap imports. And that's how you can that, in combination with like industrial policy, which is to say like the IRA, right? The Inflation Reduction Act had large amounts of investments in what they call fabs, chip manufacturing facilities in the United States. And those two policies work hand in hand. You go, okay, we're going to make the imports more expensive, and we're going to do all that. We're going to cut regulation. We're going to encourage. We're going to have grants. We're going to do all this other industrial
bring the cost
policy
overhead low down
to bring the cost overhead down, and so local industry can compete with that international industry. And it's protectionism, and generally, like, free market economists aren't a fan of these policies. But you can see, like in China's case, it was really successful. These industrial policies basically built China up over the last 30 years from nothing, because they had industry, they nurtured it at home. They did things like they manipulated their currency in order to be really competitive with foreign markets. They stole a lot of IP, a lot of intellectual property from other places, and basically just started making their own goods with the knowledge gained by other places. So and obviously China's been an economic success, a miracle, right? The Chinese miracle is what they call it.
Not a bubble.
Not a bubble. Well, yes. I mean, there's certainly bubular aspects to it, certainly, especially when you look at their real estate situation. But don't worry about it. It's fine. You're thinking about it. Don't think about it. So tariffs in the way that. So that's a bit of background on tariffs. Tariffs in the way that Trump has announced them, and I'm struggling to find a way to say this that isn't completely crass. Completely fucking moronic. Because what the Trump team has done is they've just announced across the board tariffs. Like
for everyone. Not just for like particular countries.
Yeah. Not for particular products, not for particular sectors. And the other thing you could do with tariffs is you might use it to hurt an enemy, like a sanction. Any products that come from, say, for example, Russia are going to get pinged with 100% tariff. And that's our way of saying, fuck you. Your products aren't going to get sold here anymore, basically, just because they'll become prohibitively expensive, otherwise known as sanctions, right? That's one of the levers you can pull when you're sanctioning a country. What Trump has done by tariffing everyone is they've just sanctioned every country, including land masses that don't have people on them.
I'm sure. I mean, they've got penguins. Antarctica's got penguins.
There's a section of the Antarctic that has been tariffed by the Trump administration, a section where no people live, there are only penguins, which just shows that they're just going like Control F countries in some fucking database and then saying tariff everyone. Now, the way these... sorry, go on. I'll let you... I was going to
say, there's a spreadsheet and they've just dragged the formula down.
Dragged it down. And the formula, they said, we're announcing reciprocal tariffs. On April 2nd, Liberation Day, that's what they called it, these fucking idiots with their freedom fries. Liberation Day, liberation from all fucking economic sense. Liberation Day, they've announced all these tariffs, and the way they said they were going to do is they're going to be reciprocal tariffs. So the idea is if you've got a tariff against us, or we're going to levy the exact same tariff against you, it's going to even things out, right? And considering, like a really considered, thoughtful evaluation of the tariffs you've got against us and any non-tariff trade barriers that you might have that might impact America selling our goods to your country. And what they did was they didn't do that, is they literally took, and people think the formula was generated by ChatGPT. They literally created a formula. Oh, no. Yeah. Because if you ask ChatGPT or Claude or some of these large language models how to quickly create a rule of thumb that would address the trade deficit with other countries, this is what it tells you to do. So there's been no 3-month study from the fucking Better Business Bureau.
There wasn't a feasibility study or any sort of review or any sort of checks.
The feasibility study was, hey, Claude, I need to create some tariff policy that's going to ruin the world economy. What would you recommend? And so basically they've come up with this formula, which is what the deficit is, our trade deficit. So here we go, talking about fucking trade deficits. All the listeners are gone, by the way. All the vaginas have just dried up and just completely snapped shut. No one's listening to this fucking podcast anymore, but here we go. So a trade deficit is I sell you something, you sell me something, the amount that I sell to you is less than what you sell to me. So for example, America buys something like $440 billion worth of stuff from China. China buys whatever it is, $100-something billion worth of stuff from America. So the trade deficit that America has with China is $295 billion, something like that. Trade deficits aren't inherently a bad thing. What they're generally evidence of is the fact that you have a developed country that's got disposable income and you have corporations that are willing to.
You have more spending power.
You've got spending power. That's what it means.
Yeah.
And most people see a trade, like economists generally look at a trade deficit and say, well, that is a sign of a successful economy. People are making products efficiently elsewhere and selling them into your consumers at prices that they want to buy them at. So what happens
is
they
can afford it.
And they can afford it, and so they buy it. It's a cost of living, almost like a subsidy, you can think of it as, because if you live in America, it means you can get like a $300 TV, right? And maybe your wages aren't going up because of globalization. You lost your job in the fucking, truck nuts fair, fucking manufacturing facility that closed down. And, so maybe you lost your job, but you got a job elsewhere doing something else. But it does mean that the products that you buy from China or from Bangladesh or from wherever are much cheaper. So yes, the cost of housing is going up. Yes, the cost of insurance is going up. The cost of education is going up. But you do have these other kind of cost of living, you would almost call them subsidies, in the fact that you have cheap goods. You get a cheap TV, you can get a cheap fucking phone, you can get a cheap Nintendo, or, those things kind of go some way.
Cheap burrito, bro. You get a cheap burrito from across the border. Just
maybe not a burrito, because you can, burritos are sourced locally, but you understand what I mean. You have it's almost like a kind of a subsidy for consumers in America that they can get cheap goods from overseas to a certain degree. Now, whilst it doesn't completely make up for education and houses shooting up 50,000%, it goes some way to ameliorate that. What Trump has done is basically said, we're taking the difference between those two numbers, the deficit divided by the total imports, right? And that gives us a number, and we divide that number by 2, and that is the number percentage that you get tariffed. Now, why is it divided by 2? Why is it not divided by 12? Who the fuck knows? It's just a fucking make 'em up. They literally
12 would be unreasonable, George.
They just took some fucking formula and just applied it to every nation on earth. So even countries like Australia...
It's not consistent, though, is the other thing. So it's like, for like, let's say 2/3 of the world, that's the formula. And then there are other random examples where it's like higher or lower because they wanted it to be that.
Yes. So countries like Indonesia are facing like a 64% tariff on their goods into America. But like, it only makes sense for you to tariff, like you don't tariff whole countries. You would tariff particular sectors, because like a lot of the stuff that Indonesia sells to America is stuff that America doesn't make. Like coffee, like things that American consumers want and need and have to get from abroad. Botswana.
I'm sure that they're going to enjoy having to pay more for lithium now, which powers all their batteries.
Exactly. Like, doesn't the fucking car billionaire next to you say something like, no, we need the lithium. Like, everyone just calm down on the fucking... So for example, Botswana, a country in Central Africa, has got this massive tariff percentage against it as a result of this dumb fucking formula that they've made up. But the reason that Botswana has such a trade deficit with the United States is because they sell them diamonds. America doesn't manufacture their own diamonds. They can't fucking get diamonds anywhere else. You need to get them from places that make the diamonds.
Dig up Yellowstone or something and just like have a look around. I don't know.
They don't make their own coffee. They don't make their own diamonds. There's things that you're like, as well set up as America is. Like, America is probably the best country in the world set up for autarky, the idea that you build and make and sell everything to yourself, and the self-sustaining country. America is probably the best placed country to be able to do something like that, and it still can't, right? Because autarky is dumb, and when experiments happened with autarky, around the First World War and the Second World War, due to sanctions and all these different things happening during those wars. The
Soviet Union worked out great.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, the reason the Soviet Union collapsed was because they were trying to do autarky, and it's just too fucking hard for one country to specialize in everything. That, like, economists talk about specialization. You develop, you set up an industrial park in Vietnam, and they, you pour a bunch of a couple of $1 billion into this industrial park, and this industrial park has special economic exclusion zones, and you get a bunch of experts, you get a bunch of training providers, and you get them to congregate all in this one place, and they can become the best fucking people in the world at creating whatever it is, aeronautical engineering parts. Okay? You're not going to be able to do that in like Ohio. because it's just like it's not set up. The engineers aren't there. The infrastructure isn't there. It takes like decades to build up expertise. And like the fabs that they've got for chip engineering in Taiwan are so highly specialized that it's probably the main reason that China hasn't invaded yet is because the industry is so valuable. You know what I mean? Like
Taiwan's reciprocal tariff is 32%.
It makes no sense. We need the chips. Everyone needs the chips from Taiwan. Why are you doing this to us?
You know, in a consumer economy where everyone's buying smartphones,
everything's computer.
TVs,
as Trump said recently, everything's computer.
All the chips that go into the Teslas.
Internet of Things. Yes, even your fucking fridge is wired up to the internet now. Your car's wired up. Everything's wired up. Well, they need these chips. Why are they making them more expensive for no reason?
Has a 32. They've put them on a 32% reciprocal tariff.
So dumb. So dumb. It's so dumb.
So what this means is
this global like foot shooting that he's doing to the American economy.
Everything is now going to be in America. For anything you buy that's been imported is now going to be double, triple. More expensive. Not just specific things. Everything that's imported will be more expensive.
The dumbest thing about this is like. It's not even completed items. It's any time something crosses the border into America, it gets tariffed on a percentage basis on a sticker price. So if you get a car part and the car part originates in America and then goes down to Mexico and gets assembled into this other thing, you know, gets turned into a fucking carburetor, I don't know, from cars. The carburetor then goes back into the United States to get something else done to it. The carburetor then goes up to Canada to get something else done to it and then comes back to America. Well, that's 3 fucking times that you've been tariffed, that you've been double dipping on the same part. You know what I mean? Like this is what globalized manufacturing is now, even though China, which is described as the world's factory, where a lot of these things are assembled, they have inputs from other countries and those parts travel back and forward. It's not countries selling things to countries. It's corporations selling things to other corporations, and those corporations happen to be in different countries because that is the place where it is most efficient to do this thing. So, and that could be American companies. If you are whatever, a company like Apple, headquartered in the US, based in the US.
I don't know how like not Steve Jobs, what's his name?
Tim Apple.
Tim Apple and like Zuckerberg and who's the other one? Amazon. Bezos haven't like imploded because keep in mind, like Bezos, his whole business model is importing shit from overseas and putting it in warehouses in the US. Like this will break Amazon.
Yes. Yeah, and Bezos' whole strategy for Amazon, he's on the record as saying this. He said, no one's ever going to be mad at me for getting something to you cheaper and faster. And this will hurt both of those things. So it's like,
I don't know how
the whole business model of Amazon, like they'd be freaking out.
And this is the other thing.
We owe Kyle Gass an apology. That's all I'm saying.
This has come from the party that is, you know, meant to be the one that's for the free market.
The free market humpers. Yes.
And, you know, it's backed by all these oligarchs.
Thomas Friedman, all these, you know, all these fucking right-wing conservatives, like even Ben Shapiro, not an economist, but right-wing conservative, always been very pro-Trump. Even he was like, so this is going to be like the biggest tax levy in a generation. I don't know why Trump is doing this. It's like, bro, if you've lost Ben Shapiro from the right-wing echo chamber, like you're really fucking up. Like you're doing something pretty bad.
I wonder, is this Trump and his inner circle just going with the ideology of this?
Yes.
Or is this part of the larger Project 2025 movement? I don't think it is. I think this has got to be like a lot of the stuff they've been talking about up until now in terms of deregulating the government and you know and shutting down departments.
That's all from the
2024. Yeah, 2025. It's part of a larger movement. There are other people pushing this. It feels like with the tariffs.
This
has been thought up by him or maybe like
he's got a couple of really
circle.
like he's probably one of the most insulated presidents that have existed in like our lifetime, and that includes. You know, President Biden, whose brain was leaking out of his ears for the last year of his presidency and it wasn't seeing the light of day just in case his skin started sizzling like the Wicked Witch of the West. But like, you know, he is very insulated. There's a couple of like right-wing freaks that are whispering in his ear. Some of them, like one of them's like Peter Navarro, who's presumably the trade guy that's like sort of ginned all of this stuff up, and he had some books about, China and like very conspiratorial kind of like right-wing echo chamber nonsense that Peter Navarro was spouting. And then you also have freaks like Laura Loomer as well, who single-handedly seems to be responsible for getting a bunch of like national security people fired from the White House. This is like a 9/11 truther. This is the woman who chained herself up outside of Twitter because she got like shadow banned or whatever, like a real fucking nut bar. And these are the people that are whispering in his ears, these fucking crazy nut bars. And they're the ones that have presumably, them and others, have devised this trade policy. And it fits in with other things like JD Vance has got like a very protectionist, like pro-America, let's bring jobs back to Ohio, kind of like populist, right-wing populist kind of vibe about him. But
I don't think even JD Vance is that stupid.
Yeah.
Like he's been to business school.
Yeah, he knows
how this works.
He's not a dumb guy. He just plays a dumb guy on television.
Yeah. He hits the right notes. Like JD Vance in some ways is actually more dangerous than Donald Trump, if he were getting power. But he's not stupid. Like he would know that this is a slab of concrete on top of a patient you're meant to be operating on with a scalpel.
They are putting a lead foot on the brakes of the American economy. Like this will cause a recession. Every economics person I've listened to on this is like, we don't know why he's doing it. It makes no sense. It's not going to. Don't worry.
I've got an inflation problem already.
It's going to be painful in the short term, but it's also going to be painful in the medium to long term as well. There's no good reason to do this.
Even if you game this out and you go, okay, well, let's go with the Soviet Union style, like protectionist, we'll do everything ourselves concept.
Yeah.
That's
worked out great for Yeltsin.
That's a 30 to, and if it is somehow mystically successful, right? That's a 30-year project.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Like, China didn't just turn into an economic powerhouse overnight. It took them decades, 30 to 40 years.
Decades to get it together, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is with China, even as a communist country, China is still engaging in trade. Like, the idea that you're just going to cut...
They looked at the United States and went, we should be doing what they're doing.
Basically,
and they created their own form of communism, basically.
They said this is how the Americans got rich, is becoming the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. We can do that. We can do it faster and cheaper. And, we can take that role on instead. Like they copied the American playbook to a certain extent. Yeah. All these guys like Henry Ford, they came up with the factory line and, just-in-time manufacturing. Yeah, just-in-time manufacturing and all these kind of inventions that really allowed the American manufacturing machine to grow. Like a lot of people argue that's the reason the Americans won the Second World War, is because there was just a war of attrition. They could build more tanks, more planes, more boats more quickly than the Japanese, than the Germans. And so it just became a war of like, well, who can manufacture the fastest and the most and the best? And the Americans won because they just had a natural advantage in that regard. Like, the idea that you would sacrifice that advantage and that the whole global financial order is built around the spokes which lead into the center of the wheel, which is America, that you would give that up voluntarily. It's just like, there's no words that I can use for it on air that I would be allowed to say. Like, it's so monumentally dumb.
It's funny as well, because I think in doing this, people often imagine... the whole America Great Again thing. I think people think back to the 50s and the late 40s where there was economic boom through these manufacturing. I think,
and union membership was at an all-time high, and the middle class was getting a fair chunk of the productivity and growth that they were generating, and houses didn't cost $1 million, and they were making a wage, or they could get into their first house, and one person working in one manufacturing plant could cover a whole family. The entire landscape, the economic landscape, is completely different now. Like, it doesn't, and this is the thing, is Americans don't want these fucking jobs. The whole idea is you're going to set the economy on fire, you're going to burn the S&P 500 to the ground, and the whole idea is you're going to get a couple of million more manufacturing jobs back into the country, maybe over 10 years, right? And that's if CEOs trust you enough to stay consistent with this policy, which they don't. But say that, CEOs readjust their 5-year, 10-year investment horizons and change to manufacturing everything in America to suit your plans as Trump. Like, Americans don't want these fucking jobs. becoming a service sector economy where you have highly intelligent people, highly educated people performing high-level functions in like a white-collar environment, that is the goal of every developed economy. Because manufacturing, whilst it is good, it's kind of a stepping stone to like becoming an advanced economy. The reason you get into manufacturing is not so you can make T-shirts in a sweatshop in Bangladesh for $1 a day. That's not everyone's ideal job. The reason you get into manufacturing is so you can get into advanced manufacturing. So you can make a part of a plane wing and sell it to Boeing for $7,000. That is why you do
civilization.
That. Like, yes,
it's like playing a video game. Like
that is why you want to become a service sector economy. You don't go then from a service sector economy back to a manufacturing economy because most Americans don't want those fucking jobs. It is not going to give people economic or psychological satisfaction to be in a sweatshop 18 hours a day making T-shirts because now, we're trying to outcompete Bangladesh for the fucking highly lucrative shitty T-shirt market. Like, it's not where the direction that the economy needs to be going in. Like,
so it's insane. And so as George said, the S&P 500's down 8% over the last 5 days.
Oh, I think we're officially in a bear market now from the heights in February. I think it's down over 15. Is it 15 or 20% for a bear market? Yeah. So the economy has taken an absolute kick. There has been no single person in history that has eviscerated so much wealth in so little time than Donald Trump. There has been multiple trillions of dollars wiped out of people's personal wealth from the stock market since February.
Yeah, if you look at your super will now be, if you're in Australia, your superannuation will now be a couple of grand less.
Yeah.
If not more, depending on your investment
strategy. Because everyone's tied in to the global market of capital. The Americans are 2% of the population, but they're like, I think it's like 75% of the fucking market cap. Like all of the growth, all of the wealth is in American companies. And he's just taken a fucking hatchet to that. And I see all these conspiracy, galaxy brain fucking morons online being like, oh yeah, it's the fucking rich. It's the rich looking after the rich, and they're taking a hatchet to the market to watch the prices go down, and then they're going to buy the dip and get even richer. And I was like, no, they already own everything. The top 1% of the 1% already own all of the stocks. They're the ones that are freaking out right now.
They're shooting themselves in the foot.
They're the ones shitting the beds right now because they go, fucking $40 billion worth of my personal wealth just disappeared. They don't want stock prices to go down. They're not going to sell and buy the dip, you fucking morons. They're the ones who own everything. Why would they want that?
They are the dip.
They are the dip.
And Donald Trump did say, he's like, it's a good time to get rich. I'm like, is it?
No.
Because this has just been the first few days. Like,
yes.
Like, is a country, global inflation is the thing that everyone's been talking about for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
In the US, you are going to overnight have, in some cases,
60% inflation.
30% inflation.
Yes. Yeah. And what they're worried about is stagflation, a situation where the economy is stagnant, it's not growing, and you get massive inflation on goods. And this puts this is a really wicked problem to solve for if you're working in their equivalent of the RBA, the Fed, the ones who set rates. You don't know what to do. Do you raise rates to curb inflation? Do you lower rates because the economy's cratering and you're in a recession? You don't know what the fuck to do in that situation because, everything is so broken.
One measure won't fix everything.
Yeah, it's not. There's no levers that you can pull that are going to fix the problem. So it's a really pernicious situation to get into, and it seems one that Trump is like hell bent on throwing the global economy towards. And what you also have in a situation like this is capital flight, where people see, I've got this happened to me this week or the week before or whatever it was. I knew these tariff announcements were coming. I could see. I said to my wife, I don't think that I don't think he's going to change course. Like, if he does what he says he's going to do, it's going to crash the global economy. And I don't see anyone talking him out of it. So I'm going to pull all of my money out. I had money in American shares, in Apple, in Facebook, in, AMD. I've pulled all of it out because I don't want my money in there knowing who the fuck knows what's going to happen over the next couple of years.
And it was the right decision because...
It's the right decision because I've saved fucking 20% by pulling it out.
Yeah.
So, and what happens is that capital doesn't come back to the United States. There's all of these foreign investors that are going, man, US seems like a really fucking dangerous place to have my money right now. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to put it in fucking cash or bonds. And what happens is people don't make investments, which means that, new companies, new things don't grow because everyone's keeping their powder dry going, let's just wait and see what happens with the economy before we invest anything. And that's how you get a fucking global recession. Like what we're talking about here could be of the same order of effect as like COVID or the global financial crisis. That is what we're talking about here. Is he's just put a boot in the fucking economy, and now we just all need to live in the new world that he has created. If people don't invest money, if they don't start businesses, if they don't invest capital into R&D, if they hold things back, if they save their money, that's what happens. People don't invest, things don't get created, things don't grow. You get a recession. Like, it's pretty straightforward.
It's and look, geopolitically, it is China and Russia and India, like the EU, like all these other countries. It's actually, they're looking at this and going, well, actually, this probably will work out better for us. Because
China is licking their fucking lips at the moment. Okay, so for example, the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, right, was a multilateral agreement which was headed up by America during the Obama term, I believe it was. And the whole idea behind it was basically China, not what they would say, but they would say, it's about increasing multilateral partnerships and freeing up trade and all this sort of stuff. What it really was an effort to contain China, right? If we America, trade with the Philippines and Thailand and Vietnam and have all these multilateral investments in these countries and encourage these relationships, what that's going to do is that's going to box in China, right? We don't want China raising up and becoming the global superpower and calling all the shots as America. So we're going to box them in. Well, guess who's running the fucking TPP now? The Americans abandoned it with Trump. They said, fuck that. We're not going to get suckered in to being at the center of global trade and commerce. We're not going to get fooled into playing that role. So they've stepped out. Guess who's fucking jumping in there now? Fucking China. Yeah. China is now going to run the China containment policy. You know what I mean? Like they will put themselves at the center of global capital, and it will be to America's detriment. And there's no reason.
They've already been doing that.
America's chosen to do this to themselves. It's the amount of foot shooting I've never seen from any kind of leadership. Like,
it's less a foot shooting. It's more not even stepping on a landmine.
Like putting the landmine
down. Yeah, cutting your legs off.
Yes.
Putting the landmine down and then deliberately stepping on it. China has been sort of making efforts to, with the whole Belt and Road Initiative for years now. But this basically removes any competition to that effect, right? Now, for Australia, our biggest trading partner is China. So, we're okay, well, maybe this isn't... we don't import that much from the United States.
No, but we have a trade deficit with them. We buy way more from them than they buy from us, and yet we still got pinged with a 10% tariff because...
Well, we got off lightly compared to everyone else.
Well, 10% was the minimum, basically. So it goes, we've got incredible beef, a very strong beef, and they don't like our beef, and so we're sanctioning them. It's like we have a free trade agreement with America. We don't have tariffs by definition with any trade that happens from America. We buy billions more from you than you buy from us, and we're spending $385 billion on a fucking submarine program, which is directly responsible for investments in your economy. One of the first things that happened as part of that submarine program is that we spent millions of dollars building a factory in the United States to help facilitate this submarine project. We are customers. Why are you doing this to us? I'm a customer, Donald.
I don't actually know what we I don't even know what we import from the US. But
it's the biggest fucking sweetheart deal of all time is we give you all the money and you maybe give us some submarines in 10 years. It's the biggest fucking cash grab nonsense ever. And he's still like, but we've got a very strong beef and they've got weak beef and they don't want our beef. It's like, yeah, of course we don't want your fucking pink slime antibiotic filled fucking mass farm manufactured beef, Donald. Of course we don't want your shit beef. We've got biocontrols. You go, so they got a 10%. They got a 10% tariff. It's like, that's the GST. It applies to everything, cunt. Not just you, not just your beef. Fucking hell. Do a Google.
It is, it's insane. So
I've been losing my mind. I've been losing my fucking mind. And of course, China hasn't taken this lying down. They've turned around and put tariffs back on the United States, dangerously, not specific tariffs against specific industries. They've gone, okay, you're going to tariff us, we're going to tariff you an extra 34%. All right, go fuck yourself. Fuck me. Fuck me. Fuck you. And this is how trade wars start. Of course, they're not going to take it lying down.
Anyway, so just watch. If you're in Australia, just watch your super, check your shares, just probably divest from America in general.
I personally know someone that is maybe going to have to come out of retirement because of what this has done to their super. Yeah. Like, it has real fucking consequences for people's lives. Okay, it's not just
everyone being like, "Oh, what happens over there doesn't affect us." It's
I can't stand it. The amount of times that people have said that to me with this podcast, "Why do you talk about America so much? What happens over there doesn't affect us at all." It's like, well, I have thousands of dollars less in my account now because crazy fucking Donald decided to rip up the world order. Like, money in my pocket is less because of this crazy fucking guy. Like, of course it affects us. I think it was Doug Stanhope that said, other countries take an interest in American foreign policy because they don't want to become victims to it. That's exactly what happened.
And speaking of affecting us, one of the effects perhaps with Donald Trump in general has been that the Liberal Party has been integrating various Trumpisms into their campaign.
Yeah, we're only ever 6 months behind the worst fucking ideas of these morons in the GOP here in Australia. Peter Dutton is just on a 3 to 6 month delay with whatever dumb cooked shit is happening in the United States.
And initially, when some of these things were started to, I guess, roll out by Dutton, so let's cut back on the public service, let's have our own Doge, let's get rid of the woke agenda, these kind of things that were deliberate.
Deliberate links to Donald Trump and his agenda, for sure. Yeah.
Initially, they did play pretty well. Dutton was ahead in the polls, but as we've progressed further into the Trump term, these things are starting. People are starting to realize how fucked everything is. And
even Americans,
hang on,
even the dumb fucking Americans who voted for this guy. I saw a clip of Joe Rogan the other day being like, "Oh, that's kind of weird that they're just like, scooping up guys off the street and sending them to mega prisons in El Salvador. Like, there's got to be a good reason, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, no." No, he's just doing that and it's a crime. He can't do that. He's not allowed to do that. And he's like, yeah, but maybe she was like being violent or something. Like, man, why would he do that? Like, I just don't even get it. And they're like, yeah, no, she wasn't being violent. She wrote an op-ed and that was it. She just like said things that Trump didn't like. And so he fucking scooped people up and has them deported and has them sent to fucking El Salvador and mega prisons. Yeah, and he's like, yeah, but there's got to be like some good reason as to why he's doing it. It's like, no, Joe, there's no good reason. The guy you endorsed is a fucking fascist piece of shit who's ruining the world. And even Joe Rogan, even dense fucking Joe Rogan is like, he can't be doing that. There's got to be a good reason. Surely there's got to be a... you wouldn't just do that for no reason.
So close.
You're so close to getting it, Joe. You're so close to getting it.
But in Australia, obviously, our demographics are very different to that of the US, and people have started to cotton on and have being like, "Well, what do you mean by this, Peter? When you say you're going to cut the public service, when you say you're going to do some
jobs.
of these things,
why?
How are you going to actually do that? Like, give us some detail." And Dutton, even now, we're a week into the campaign, they still haven't really given us any detail on any of their policies.
Details coming at them. Just wait till election day. We'll text it out to you. We'll have Clive Palmer text it out.
And people are starting to realize now, and because the other thing is, because some of this stuff is played badly, they're flip-flopping. So Dutton has been flip-flopping on his messaging, depending on which audience he's speaking to.
Policy on the run. We got some policy on the run.
And then he's got his teammates being like, "You didn't discuss that with us," and they're saying that publicly.
Yeah, to journalists. Yeah, it's not like they're saying it in an encrypted signal chat. They're turning around to Samantha Maiden from The Australian being like, "I don't know why he's saying that. We did not discuss that at all."
And so then a week later, he's like, he softens the language, or he'll do a flip and say, "Actually, we're not going to do that. We're not going to," the whole, we'll talk about in a minute, the work from home thing. So people are saying to cotton on that he's got no real idea.
That he's a fucking moron. That he's a fucking idiot who has no fucking clue what he's doing. Yeah.
And we'll give you an example now. There's a stream here where some of the Trumpisms perhaps have been have floated through. And this particular here, it was a question from a Sky News forum.
It's like a forum, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a question here from one of the audience members, and this was his response.
Yeah, the greatest minds of our generation would definitely congregate at a Sky News forum. So here they are saying some words. Question from the audience.
What will the coalition do to tackle the woke agendas that are being pushed through our education system?
We do provide funding to the state governments, and we can condition that funding. And we should be saying to states, and we should be saying to those that are receiving that funding, that we want our kids to be taught the curriculum, and we want our kids to be taught what it is they're needed to take on as they face the challenges of the world, and not to be guided into some sort of an agenda that's come out of universities. And I think there's a lot of work to do, but that's the way in which the government can try and influence the New South Wales government or the Queensland government or the Victorian government, whatever it might be. And I think that's, again, a debate that we need to hear more from parents on. I think there is a silent majority on this issue right across the community. And when the government, at the start of this term of Parliament, tried to stop independent schools and religious schools from deciding on who they could employ or what they were going to teach at their school, I think there was an uprising then, not just from the religious leaders, but from parents as well, who pushed back on that. And I think that was, something that the government dropped fairly quickly thereafter because they knew they were going down the wrong path. But again, I think it's a big difference between the two parties.
Word salad, yummy, yummy.
That's an example there. The whole work agenda in schools.
What about the work agendas coming to our schools? Says the woman in her 60s who definitely has a school-age kid that she needs to be worried about. Put your fucking phone down, Suzanne. Put it down. There's nothing good in there. It's just Sky News. Put it down. There's no fucking woke agendas, Suzanne. It's all fucking national curriculum, you dumb cunt. There's no fucking ideological critical race theory. What's the woke agenda, Peter? Explain it to me. And the policy that he suggests as a way of combating the totally real woke agendas, whatever they might be, is to condition funding, federal funding to schools to ensure that their ideology is in alignment with Peter Dutton's, which is a fucking horrifying set of circumstances to actually envision and implement this kind of fascistic kind of, if you don't believe what I personally believe, we're going to cut your funding to schools. Like, that is fucking monstrous to actually consider what the real life implications of that would be.
And this has been playing very well in pro-Trump circles. And obviously it's a Sky News forum. I think that played well in that forum. However, everyone else then hears that and says, and goes,
fucking, excuse me, what? What the fuck?
And then a week later, he's walking
the next day, the journalist is like, hey, are the woke agendas in the room with us now? Like, could you explain areas of our curriculum that are being taken over by the woke agenda? Like they did their job as journalists, which was to say, fucking what? What do you mean by that? Fucking explain yourself. And he was like, oh, well, we addressed this yesterday. It's the woke agendas. It's the ideology. I was like, oh, there is nothing fucking happening in your brain. Your brain is the empty space inside of an atom where the protons are going this way, the electrons are going this way, and ne'er do they fucking meet. Nothing happens in that empty fucking smooth-brained head of yours, Peter. What are you talking about?
And so this first week of the first official week of the election campaign has been a bit of a disaster, to be honest, for the Liberals.
It's going great. It's going great as far as I'm concerned. It's going great. Keep it up, Peter.
David Spears did a wonderful piece, which... for the ABC about how Dutton is basically he's deliberately now, by taking on some of these Trumpisms, he's wedged himself by, they're trying to, in some ways, win back teal seats, to try and get the moderates back in these teal seats. But at the same time, they're also trying to pander to the crazies who like all the Trump stuff.
They're being wedged. They're being wedged by one nation on the far right, going super hard, super pro-Trump.
The trumpeter
patriots, fucking horseshit. And then they've got the, sort of centre-right sort of Malcolm Turnbull voters that are going, oh, I'm kind of just really wanting my stock to go up. Like, I just want number go up. But, and this is not really cutting tens of thousands of public sector jobs and like taking a hatchet to the economy is not going to achieve that. So there's like a bunch of normie like property investors that are going, oh, I don't actually know if this is what I want. But like,
if you've got any nous about you in terms of an election campaign, you would realise that last election, the biggest threat to you was actually the Teals.
Yes.
Right? It's
that's
the
why
fact
they
that
lost
you're losing
all of the seats.
You're losing the centre. Your biggest drop in seats was the centre.
Yeah.
Why the fuck aren't you targeting those?
Oh, they've given up.
They're the ones who need to win back.
They've given up on the inner city seats because they know they're not going to win. They know it is a party that is dominated by the extreme far right wing. They know they're not getting fucking Monique Ryan's seat back. It's just not going to happen, right? So they're not even contesting it.
Well, they might if they put a candidate in there, add some policies and some fucking intelligent thought into anything that they've done thus far.
Sure, but people know.
Maybe they would.
But people know, like, it's what happened with Dave Sharma. It's what happened with Josh Frydenberg. It's what happened with all of these kind of like, centrist. Malcolm Turnbull got knifed because of this exact reason, because he was kind of a centrist, and the right wingers, went to war over energy policy.
But that was 6 years ago.
And the right wingers won. But they're the only ones that are left, Adam. Dave Sharma, if he was re-elected today, is still going to have to turn around and vote with this bald prick on everything that he puts through as Prime Minister. So, and people know that. They know that a vote for Josh Frydenberg, were he to run again in Kooyong, would be a vote for fucking Peter Dutton. There is clips of Malcolm Turnbull saying, like, I cannot think of any, and they're floating around, like the Labor's social media strategy. Like, they've had some misses, but they've had some hits this time around. And there's like a cute clip, there's like Instagram clips where it's like words and like some music over like a sunny background, and it's dun da da dun da, and it's like this kind of particular music. And it's like Malcolm Turnbull talking about how Peter Dutton is just completely manifestly unfit to be Prime Minister. Like a guy who was your colleague, who was your leader, who was your party, who was, moderately well liked and credentialed and intelligent and well respected, has basically said, I can't think of fucking anyone worse. And they've said it to music, and they're running those ads. I can't think of anyone worse than Peter Dutton to run the country.
That's why we got Scott Morrison, because it was a choice between Dutton or Scott Morrison. And people were like...
And Turnbull allegedly was pulling the strings behind the scene to go, I would rather it be everyone's favourite Scott Morrison rather than Peter Dutton. That was the calculus that was happening behind the scenes in the Liberal Party. Like, this is the guy that we got ScoMo to avoid. Anyway, so he's like, Peter Dunn's in a really difficult position. I can't say I feel particularly sorry for him because he's a horrible prick, but like he's in a really tough position electorally because he's wedged between these Trump hardcore ultra right wing voters, which is where the party's heading anyway, and the kind of moderate, center right kind of like old school
most
liberal,
of their votes are.
liberal, which is where most of their votes are. So, so he's trying to say, in one breath, he's saying like, oh, we've got to cooperate with Trump and we love Trump. And then Trump levies a bunch of unfair tariffs against us. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to stand up to Trump. Well, it's just like, well, you can't fucking have it both ways.
Within the space of like a week,
weeks,
like
within
5 days.
Yeah, so here's Peter Dutton saying a bunch of bullshit.
And I agree with the Prime Minister's position, and I'd say that I will stand up for our country's interests every day if I'm given the great honour of being Prime Minister of this country. I am not going to compromise in relation to issues that are of national significance and importance to us. I will always make decisions which keep our country safe, and I will stand up for our interests and negotiate for the best possible outcome for Australia, and I won't compromise on any of that for our country.
Going to go to bat against Trump, or you were sucking his cock fucking 8 days ago. So I don't know how that's going to go, Peter. It just
for context, days before, what he was saying was that, well, Anthony Albanese's dropped the ball here, and what he needs to do is go and make a deal. And if I was
make a deal, I'd be the chief negotiator. I'd go make a deal.
It'd be my first priority to go to the United States, and I'd be making a deal, and I think I've got the ability to make a deal. And then literally,
actually, my principles have changed. My principles have changed. We need to stand up to America. I decided days later. You were gargling his balls 48 hours ago, Peter. What's the strategy, mate? What's going on?
Another example of the flip-flop here is the coalition rethinking its return to work mandate. So one of the things they said was that we're going to cut the public service, and also all of the public service must go back to the office 5 days a week. And that was something.
And
that was very
everyone
publicly
loved
said.
that policy. Loved it. Everyone loves return to work mandates.
Anyway, so now Dutton, in another interview, has softened that approach to say, well, it's only going to be the people that are stationed in Canberra that would have to return to work.
He said that's the majority. The majority of public servants are in Canberra, and they're the ones that we would want to come into the office full time. And it's like, actually, only about a third of public servants are in Canberra. So that was either a lie or you're just fucking wrong. How can you be the leader of the opposition and be wrong about Canberra's composition of federal workers? Like, either you're a moron or you're a fucking liar. Like, like how is this guy the opposition leader? I don't understand how it's even close between Albanese and Peter Dutton. I just don't understand it.
He's a good attack dog.
He's a fucking goon, Adam. Even his own supporters kind of know he's a fucking moron. They're talking about that thing on Sky News last week where, Sky News was doing a vox pop and they go, so what do you think of Anthony Albanese? And they're like, yeah, he's all right. On Sky News. They couldn't find anyone in a fucking Liberal district who was willing to go to bat for Peter Dutton. Like
we said this last week, but it's interesting because I keep comparing Tony Abbott to Dutton because it's a similar sort of concept that
same kind of culture war moron. Yeah.
Tony Abbott, fought a war of attrition and an attack dog type campaign, very highly critical of Labor. During the 2013 sort of year, and then obviously won the sort of the election and was in government from 2014. But it makes Tony like Dutton, the way Dutton's acting at the moment is it's making like Abbott look like a bloody Nostradamus,
Rhodes Scholar.
Rhodes Scholar. Like Abbott had a 6-point plan. He stuck to the messaging. There were fair critiques of some things that were happening in the world at that time.
He said, stop the boats over and over again.
Over and over again. And obviously, he was a key minister in the Howard government, so people trusted him as well.
So was Dutton, but yeah.
Sure. Dutton, though, like most people have despite probably what people actually should understand about Howard, most people have a rose glass. What's the word I'm looking for? Like
rose-colored glasses.
Glasses view of the Howard years, right? A lot of people did quite well under Howard.
Do they? Yeah. Okay. If you say so.
But I mean, we could argue the fact that the whole reason why we have a housing crisis now is because of Howard.
Is because those people did well, and now they're buying a Porsche rather than giving money to their kids. But yeah, go on.
Putting that aside, people have this sort of fond view of it. So I think the thing is with Dutton is that people have Dutton was a minister during COVID, right? Like during some really tough years, like people have a different memory of Dutton, of ScoMo, of Turnbull, and the instability of those years as well, of like who's going to knife who, like so it's a different view. And so
like the Dutton view of like he gets pinged for this like Sith Lord kind of like image that turns up a lot in memes, but like that kind of is how a lot of the Australian populace sees him. They see him as like a wielder of the political dark arts, like who's kind of scary. He's not very charismatic. He's kind of mean. He practices a kind of pugilistic politics that people don't really like. The reason that people liked Turnbull initially is because he was nice. He was affable. Yeah, he was a rich guy and he was kind of a smart guy and a bit of a wanker. But he was a statesman. He had that kind of joie de vivre, the kind of like happy warrior kind of vibe. Peter Dutton is like the hangman has taken off the mask and now he's running for politics. Like that is the vibe that he gives.
And my point is he's always been like that.
He's always been a thug.
There is no fond
Malcolm
memory
Turnbull described him as a thug. That was the word he used to describe him, was a thug that, thrives on divisive politics.
And he did well in the voice referendum because of
it was all negative.
And to quite recently did quite well in that because he was holding Labor to account, even though half the shit he was saying was
divisive wedge politics.
Incorrect.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
Racist, divisive wedge politics.
But, Australians aren't as sometimes, the electorate and the media in this country surprises me in that when we think, like, we can actually think through things a little bit more than
the Americans
what I think,
sometimes.
And I think in this case, people are starting to go, well, yeah, what are you actually gonna?
What are you for?
And
what are your policies? Why are you such a weird cunt all the time? Like people are starting to look at it and go, no, he doesn't seem like he seems like a kind of a shit bloke, actually.
He hasn't got an answer for it. And with this working from home policy, he's now
everyone loves working from home. Why do they choose? Why do the Liberals choose these 14% fucking issues to run on? Like nothing, fucking peanut butter and chocolate, is less popular than working from home. You know what I mean? Like, working from home is an extremely popular thing. Workers everywhere want it. The only people that don't want working from home are the big businesses, the owners of the big businesses that turn around and support the Liberal Party with financial donations. They are the only people that are interested in a return to office mandate. My EBA, my enterprise bargaining agreement, now has working from home built in because there was an overwhelming demand from the union. Everyone on the worker level wants this. I can think of no easier way to alienate young professional women, who is a constituency that the Liberal Party is not fucking already doing well with, than instituting a work from the office policy. How do you think young people can raise families? Like, I've got a young son who's in childcare. I don't fucking know how we would do it. I don't know how we would do life if we did not have working from home. If me and my wife could alternate pickups and organise childcare around working from home and flexible working, how the fuck would we do it? Like, there's nothing more alienating to working people.
Just a job sharing arrangement. Just get a job sharing arrangement.
He has no fucking clue because he's worth $300 million. He's a fucking millionaire. He's never had to go down to the shops and pick up his own fucking food because he's been a millionaire his entire fucking life. That's completely disconnected from the reality of what Australians are experiencing. There is nothing more popular than working from home. Why would this be the thing that you go after but to give some fucking donor hand job?
Which is why he's obviously softened his language on it.
But did you know?
Again,
you didn't do a Google. You didn't look at some polling before you announced this policy, this extremely unpopular policy. Yeah, I'm Peter Dutton, and I'm coming out on the pro-cancer policy. We love cancer. You get some cancer. Oh, fuck, cancer's unpopular. Fuck, I should have done a Google.
Or put it in the chat GPT. That'll give you the results.
It's so nuts.
And as you said, like, some of the stuff they've been talking about in terms of changes to the public service, like, there are enterprise bargaining agreements. There are things in place that, like, would
you can't
basically mean that any of these decisions would end up in the courts.
You can't do this. Like, aside from the fact that it's immensely unpopular, it's also a thing you can't fucking do because of other legal restrictions and frameworks that are already in place. You dumb prick.
So anyway, that's week one of the campaign done. We will see how
having palpitations.
Maybe week two will reveal some of the detail in some of the coalition's
Can't wait.
much awaited policies.
Can't wait for the detail. So much detail coming. There was something that they announced, which I think so they didn't go along with Labor's tax cut. Labor, in their little mini budget that they did recently, announced that there would be a further tax cut on top of the stage 3 tax cuts that they put through earlier this year. Last year, this financial year, you know what I mean. And the Liberals said, we're not going along with those tax cuts. We're not going to support those, but we will have like a fuel excise cut. And that's going to be good for other reasons. But if you don't drive a car, then it doesn't really help you at all. So, again, they say they've costed it, they've modelled it. It's going to save people even more money than what Anthony Albanese's plan is going to cost, to which David Spears in this article rightly asks, so why it's not forthcoming, why the detail has been withheld is somewhat of a mystery, because if the plan's so fucking good and so fucking detailed and costed, why can't we see it? But that's a mystery for the ages. So it just seems like just completely policy-free election that the Liberals seem to be running at the moment. Like, it's astounding. I've never seen anything like this, where they're just trying to run it on culture war vibes. That's what they're doing.
I mean, they're trying to repeat what happened in 2013, 2014, but I don't
with Rhodes Scholar,
with the
Old Onion Eater.
But at least they had a 6-point plan, which did have some information on
it had
what
dot
those
points
6
at
points
least.
were.
It sounded like a plan, even if it was dog shit sitting underneath it. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll have some extra announcements in the next couple of weeks, but the marketing firm they're working with really needs to step up a notch.
Sorry, we'll go nuclear.
But,
don't worry about it. We'll just spend a couple trillion on nuclear, and she'll be right.
Spin one up like an AWS.
Yeah, spin up a nuclear in 8 to 12 business years, and she'll be right.
Yeah. Speaking of she'll be right, Marine Le Pen has had a rough day. Who's Marine Le Pen? She's the French far-right leader. So she heads a party called the National Rally.
Formerly the Front National.
And they've kind of been the far-right party in the French politics for years. It has been I guess, she's also been a part of the European Parliament, and, she's been a major figure in right-wing European politics for years, and has influenced, I guess the political dynamic, I think, across the continent more broadly.
The dynamic in the last 2 French national presidential elections has been largely centered around keeping Marine Le Pen out. That. Sorry, Marie Le Pen, not Marine. Marine Le Pen was her father, who was also a far-right nationalist shitbag.
It's Marine, so we're saying that the E it's French, so the Marie.
Marine Le Pen, and her father was Marie Le Pen, or was it the other way around?
It's spelt Marine, but I mean, I don't know. My French pronunciation is terrible, so you may well be able to correct me on that. But
okay, so her dad was Jean-Marie Le Pen, and she's Marine Le Pen.
Marine Le Pen, yeah. So anyway, so the last couple of elections, she's been one of the major candidates for the French presidential nominees. The National Rally also is the largest single party in the French bureaucracy. Now, without holding an outright majority. A lot of things in Europe, a lot of the time in Europe, there's coalitions and stuff, and that is the case in France. Now, despite being the darling of the right, though, she's had a bit of a tough week. A tough week because she has been sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Yeah.
So she was found guilty of embezzlement. What did she embezzle? Well, apparently...
money, typically.
4.1 million euros of European Parliament funds were used to pay staff of her party working in France, which you can't do.
Yeah, so basically they used government funds, hiring people for government jobs, which are ostensibly not really government jobs, but actually kind of party jobs, using the government to subsidize the salary of these people who are actually doing party political work rather than working in the government, right?
And that's a no-no under French law. So the judge has given her a 4-year prison sentence with 2 years suspended, and the rest will be served under home detention. But what this does, crucially, is that it excludes her from running from the 2027 presidential race. So she can still hold her current position, like she's still a member of the French elected members, and she can still, I guess, vote. But it means that she can't run for future office, which is interesting because even though it's the 2027 presidential election they're talking about, which she has said would be her last attempt at the presidential race, she is still polling ahead of everyone else. I don't know how they do their polling. It's very early polling, but what polls they have done.
Because they have runoff elections, right? So it's this awkward position of we've got a number of different candidates all going up against each other. If one candidate gets over 50%, then they win outright. If no candidate gets over 50%, then all the other lowest candidates get eliminated. And then they have another election, what they call a runoff election, where they then go head-to-head, and then whoever wins out of those two candidates becomes the president.
That's how the president... But what I'm saying is I think what they're saying is under private polling, think tanks and stuff that do their own polling, she's still ahead.
So what they're doing is they're assessing what a head-to-head matchup between the two top most likely candidates would be. So obviously Macron's out, he's term limited, he can't run again. So whoever whoever the most likely candidate from the other side is versus Marine Le Pen, and they've obviously run polling on that scenario to see who would come out on top. Currently, she's coming out on top, but she's not going to come out on top because sucked in, bitch, you did crimes, you go to jail. Well, not jail. You're probably incredibly lavish house somewhere, but But you don't get to run for president unless she wins an appeal. So,
of course, they've said, in this case here, that everything. It's just a fucking plot to oust her from office.
It's a witch hunt. Russia. It's all a hoax.
Musk has been tweeting about it. It's
naturally,
of course, whenever this happens, you try and discredit the judges or the system that makes these decisions.
If you're a fascist, that's the playbook,
and that is what they're doing in this case. But I think it will stick, unless she wins on appeal. But
anything that makes Marine Le Pen sort of walk around sadly for the cameras, that's a win in my book. She sucks. She's the worst.
Yeah, I mean, and she's arguably dragged, the Italian discourse right. She's been influential in, a lot of Central Europe.
Well, Giorgia Meloni's a far right kind of, the president of Italy, leader of Italy, whatever it is a far right sort of candidate. I mean, she has come around on some things around supporting Ukraine and things like that. So she hasn't turned out to be as much of a far right wing psychopath as people were expecting. But it's like the discourse in Europe is getting pulled to the right. Across, you look at Austria, you look at Hungary, you look at, Viktor Orban in Hungary. Like, there's been a real rightward pull in European party politics over the last decade or so, in no small part to Marine Le Pen. So to see such a big figure of the far right getting tooketh the fuck out by the judiciary is it's nice to see. You love to see it.
The system works. As it were.
Yeah. Do you think it is more dangerous that she gets taken out by legal means rather than getting voted out and sort of repudiated on an electoral basis, or what? Like, a lot of people saying like, oh no, she needs to lose because they'll say it's just a witch hunt and it's the big lie and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, in America, I would say, given what's happened, you'd say, it is actually. It's not the end. It's just the beginning, perhaps. And fascists will not that necessarily she's a direct fascist.
She has fashy tendencies. She's fash curious.
But like one of these kind of things can embolden people and push them even further into fascism, where you bounce off this thing that with the slight, this sort of prejudice that people are showing you, and then that's happened with Trump. It's happened to Hitler, right? Like, so I mean, time will tell, but. It gives her an opportunity if the wider discourse in Europe and the situation in Europe deteriorates, that she could take advantage of to say that she was a victim. And
it's a powerful narrative. I mean, every right wing shithead is running it these days. So
they're a victim of the system,
of the woke agenda.
And let's overthrow the system.
The woke agendas, Adam. Multiple agendas. Plural. So
it probably depends on the strength of French bureaucracy and institutions and again the smarts of the voting public.
They do seem willing to go to the streets over just about any fucking anything that compromises workers' rights or anything like that in any kind of like minor way. They're just like, fuck it, let's get out the Molotovs, let's fucking go, people. So
let's get on the barricade.
Yeah. The French love a barricade. That's, if there's one thing I learned from Les Miserables, it's got to be that. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist. And that includes Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads. We're on Threads now, which I might have done by accident, but we're on there and it's happening. So
you just click accept when they offered you to.
I accidentally, I was meaning to publish to my own Threads account, and I accidentally created an Unnatural Selection Threads account. But anyway, so we're on there, both of them now. So there's content on there. Go get your yummy content. Make sure you follow me on the social medias at George Tsipos. That's Facebook. No, not Facebook. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky at George Tsipos.
And you can follow me down to the Liberal Party marketing headquarters just to see what's going on. Oh, wait. It turns out it's just an empty office.
It's just an empty car park. Yeah.
With a hamster running around on a wheel. And every so often, a ball will spit out from the contraption that it's hooked up to.
It's just hooked up to ChatGPT. Just some sort of AI suggestion as to how to run the economy.
Just an ideas machine which is being run by a hamster.
Yeah. Hey, ChatGPT, acting as a political expert, create a fucking policy that everyone hates. These losers. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.